Hello, welcome to LotRO 101. I am your preceptor, lecturer, teacher, whatever, speaker of words, to use the title my character is currently wearing in game right now. I'm Druidsfire. Yeah, there's my real name there. Don't feel like you need to use it. I am the Twitch director of Signum U, and I apparently do not like logging into the Twitch account to actually change anything. So some of you may be puzzled. It's like, uncanceling? What? That's because Corey set the message for Exploring Lord of the Rings on Tuesday, and I was too lazy to change it. So, anyway, this is our second session of LotRO 101. Last week, I helped folks learn how to set up an account, to create an account on the Standing Stone website, and also to download the game and hopefully install it successfully. Some of you may be having difficulty with getting the game installed, and if you do, throw your questions in Twitch chat, and or if you're watching this asynchronously, you can toss me a DM on either Twitch or on Discord, where my name is Druidsfire. Surprise. And I will do my best to assist you. However, please be advised that if it gets a little bit too technical for even what I know, I will step back and punt and refer you to the lovely folks at Standing Stone Games or the website help.standingstonegames.com. That being said, let's move on to our very first slide. We have slides. We like to tease Corey about his slides. I actually had a lot of fun making this slide presentation. It's really cool. So, today's March 14th in real life, which means it's 3/14 in the American style of making dates. So, therefore, it's Pi Day, because 3.14. Anyway, if you're a hobbit, this is a high holiday for you, isn't it? Alright, so today we're going to actually discuss the UI, the user interface of Lord of the Rings Online. So, you're going to see a lot of game versus last week. And we will go over all the little bits and bobs that you are going to see on your screen when you're logged into a character. And we're going to show you like what you can do with it, because not only, UIs, any program that you use in like Windows or Mac is a UI, a user interface. Unlike most applications that you use in your daily life that you might use, like, PowerPoint or Word, or pretty much any, like your web browser, there isn't a lot that you can do to customize how it looks. I mean, there's some stuff you can do, there's some stuff that you can't do, but video games are actually pretty amenable to letting you mess with the user interface to make it to where you like it. So we're going to go over that today. So first of all, we're going to talk about our primary game screen, which consists of a toolbar, quick slots, we'll explain what these are, vitals, a mini-map, a chat window, a quest tracker, and we'll talk about altering the user interface. So let me show you what this UI looks like in game real quick. Boop. We have a scene. Oh no, it's the wrong scene. My other character got logged out. Oops. Well, let's log that character back in. But we want to show this one instead. Ay. Oh, this is what happens when you're not paying attention. It's fine. It is fine. It just means that my XSplit is looking at the wrong game source. So, I'm actually borrowing the lore hall that Standing Stone Games actually put into the game for Professor Corey's use. Let's see if I can get this to actually show me. XSplit. XSplit is being a little bit weird. So, let me add a source into my XSplit if it will allow me to do so. Otherwise, this is going to be a very strange game. For some reason, the XSplit application has been a little bit wonky of late. But in the meantime, as you noticed, we had mentioned all these elements here. Worst case scenario, we'll just use the other account. So give me just a moment while my cat is howling. All right, I'm going to change a little bit of the user interface here. So I am sitting on a hobbit here. I'm going to wave at this person. This is my actual play character up here. I'm going to wave at her. I'm going to wave at myself. All right. So up in the upper left-hand corner right here, like you click on it and you click on yourself. And yes, the character is an homage to my favorite band. This is actually my alternate account. This is the one that I use for streaming concerts, which we'll get into that in a later session. And her name is an homage to a friend who uses the character name of Letty Zepp when she's recording concerts. My dear friend Holly Berry of the Lonely Mountain Band. So in the meantime, so this is our basic user interface. So on the upper left-hand corner, you're going to see your vitals. This is basically a portrait of your character if you have your stuff turned on high enough. What your level is, how much morale, how much power or wrath you have, depending on which class you are. And this is really basic. It just basically tells you how are you alive, are you about to die, what's going on. You'll also see a row of things called buffs and debuffs, and we'll explain what those are in later. A buff will help you, a debuff will not. So this is a debuff called Serious Business. It basically means that the developers set a special flag on this particular room to prevent certain things from happening. It's because players are bad people sometimes. And also, this is a buff. It is telling us that a specific event is going on the game right now. And that event ends on Wednesday. Hi, Cat. This is Thief. He's annoying. He will do this all show long. So, beyond that, the next thing we have is a toolbar. Toolbar is one of the things of our user interface that you can't change. It's hello, Cat. The toolbar is down here at the bottom. Well, let me rephrase it. You can't change it in the way you can change most of the other elements of the UI. You can't scale it. You can't make it bigger or small. Well, you sort of can make it smaller. But you can't really change what it looks like unless you use a custom skin of the game, which you can do. We'll talk about a little bit about that later. I mentioned our quick bars, and they are down here. These are these things. They are customizable to some extent. So they're down at the bottom of the screen right here. The mini map is in the upper left-hand corner, the other left. The upper right-hand corner of your screen, and that is basically, it'll show you like where you are. It will not change direction based on, like the mini map won't rotate based on what direction your character is. So for example, if I take Pinky and turn her around, you notice the arrow in the upper corner changes based on which direction she's facing. So north will always be to the top, and south will always be to the bottom. And that mini-map, where it has the gold ring surrounding it, it will change based on certain factors in the game. There is a mechanic in the game called Hope and Dread, and that will affect that mini-map, and we'll actually show that to you later. By default, the mini-map will also show you what time of day it is. It will tell you the real-life time of the server. Now, because I'm in Eastern time, I'm in the same place that the servers are, well, the same time zone, it'll always show me the current same time as the server. It will also tell you what time of day it is in game. Now, one of the cool things about the game is that the day-night cycle is not one-to-one with real life. So, cat and space bars. So it is possible for you to sit around in game every couple of hours and sit through an entire day-night cycle, which is really cool because the game does look a bit different depending on what time of day it is. And for those of you who were not here last time or haven't viewed last week's episode, I'm a bit of a fan of sunsets in this game. So afternoon and dusk and gloaming and are my favorite times of the day. Over here is something that will toggle the wallet if you have purchased it. The wallet is a bit of the UI. We'll discuss that a bit later, but you can buy a basic, a premium wallet in the store. Again, future content, we'll get to it. You also can check the stable masters, which is part of the actual map, that you can see where your character has been, and as you can see, some of these are unlocked. They have a little dot to say that they're unlocked, so that's part of the mini map. It's a shortcut. There's also a shortcut to opening the main world map, which doesn't show much because we're inside. And this will be the thing we'll discuss, hope and dread, when we get to that segment of the class. And also tell you where you are, and if you're outside, it'll give you coordinates. Those coordinates are on a linear, X and Y sort of scale, like you see on a graph in algebra class or any higher mathematics. And those coordinates are good enough in most cases to help you find your way. They don't help the developers. If they have to say, tell us where you are when something bad happened, and you give them the coordinates from the mini-map, and they're going to be wrong. So, anyway, that is our mini-map. The next thing is the chat window, which you can see over here. I'm going to actually bring it here into the main view. And this is actually a really bad place for this because you can't see it based on... Let's give us a dark background. Or better yet, let's see, we can't change it here. But anyway, the chat window lets you interact with the rest of the game. Alright, let's make this... Actually, I'm going to do something with it first here. There is something you can do in the UI settings that you can make chat opaque or not. And we're going to make it opaque so you can actually read it. Alright. So... what this does is this shows me what I've done since I've logged in. Okay. Make sure my other character doesn't log out. And it displays my kinship's message of the day. It tells me that I loaded my extra layout. We'll get to saving layouts in a little bit. So the chat window is really cool. It starts down here where you could just say something. Say... my character says, hi, everyone. And anybody else in the room who is close enough will be able to see what I just said. You can also yell or shout. And that goes further away from your character. Now, the chat window, you can use it to talk to people across the game as well. By default, your game will start with 3 chat windows: combat, IMs, and general. IMs are basically somebody sending you a specific message. So, for example, it's also known as a whisper or a tell. And you hear the little ding, ding, fries are done. And my character over there, Kiriana, just got a message, and you can see the color of the message is different because the game wants you to make sure that you're not accidentally saying something publicly that you intend to go to somebody privately. You can also click over to your IMs tab and see the names of people you have sent messages to, private messages to, and you click on one and you'll be able to speak to just that person in this one specific window. And I'm not going to, because otherwise you'll hear beep, 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 and it'll be a little bit obnoxious. The combat window will basically display information specific to you about things that you've done to, harm animals or monsters or orcs or whatever, and things that they've done to you, whether harmful effects or whether they, for example, maybe they're a healer and they've just healed you to help save you from dying, or, I'm sorry, being defeated. Because, of course, in Tolkien, you don't really die, you get defeated. Because if you die, then that's a big deal. Anyway. You only knew about shout? Well, shout and yell are pretty much the same thing. And yes, you can actually take the sound effect. If you record it, you can put it on your phone as a thing. So any of these tabs you can customize. Like the IM tab, you can start an IM session. You can switch to somebody else's. You can send a tell to one of your friends. Apparently none of mine are online right now. Or you can stop IM. Or you can also log your chat, which is really cool. So basically, the reason why you might want to log chat is if you want, for example, somebody is teaching you something in game, and you wanted to be able to, follow up on that later without taking screenshot after screenshot after screenshot. It's also helpful if, for example, you can do combat logs. Let's go over to the combat tab. You can change these. You can start logging your chat, and this can be helpful if you're trying to figure out what happened in a specific fight, or if you want to see if maybe something you think that maybe something's not working correctly in the game, and you want evidence to send to the developers to say, guys, girls, this isn't working right. This is what it should be. Finally, the general tab is very, very handy. You can rename any of these tabs. You can create new tabs all day long, and by default they have the name of tab. Very, very interesting. So you can create a tab, you can delete a tab, you can change filters for a tab. That's the one that I do the most. You can also change the text colors if you want. That brings up this particular information, and we'll go over this blue. This blue window will be our friend for most of the rest of the class. We'll get to it in a minute. But, meantime, before we finish with our chat window, you can change your filters to show what will show on this particular tab. Anything that is checked will show. Anything that is unchecked will not show. Now, here's the thing. If you don't have something checked in this main window, and you don't have it checked in any other window, you won't ever see that content. So let's go over what our options are. Advancement are things like, leveling up, or you got, like, your character exceeded some particular reputation mark and you suddenly became better. A combat enemy is basically the results of, like, somebody you're fighting, what they're doing, and how much damage they're doing to you or how much healing they're doing to one of their party. A combat event is, you've defeated, so-and-so has succumbed to your mighty blow. Combat player is if you're doing PvP, player versus player. And that will let you know what's happening. And that also works when you're not only PvPing in the special PvP areas, but also doing a lesser thing called sparring, which is where you're in public and you're just, dueling amongst yourselves, not to the death, but, to the pain, I guess, to quote the Princess Bride. You have emotes. The game has a lot of emotes. In fact, we're going to show you some emotes. I'm going to click this on. I'm going to move this window out of the way because watching emotes is actually kind of fun. So, now there's two ways to use an emote. You can either just do one by yourself. Type the word LOL in chat. And a hobbit will do that. And she'll laugh. And the thing in the chat will say, you laugh out loud. Each race has their own sounds for these various emotes. Like a laugh from an elf sounds very different than a laugh from a hobbit. So if you target somebody, now by targeting, that means you click on them so their name shows up next to your name as the person that it's a target. This is the person that if you do something, it's going to act upon them. So they are the subject of this they are the object of this sentence. So we're going to laugh at Kiriana because she's funny. Now it says you laugh out loud at Kiriana. Now there's a ton of emotes. They involve all kinds of emotions like laughing, crying, needing to use the restroom, being scared. There are certain ones that you get just by having an account. A lot of them you can collect through various events or completing certain content in the game. Some you could just buy on the LotRO store. We'll go over that because that's part of a system called collections, and we'll get into collections in a later class. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to mention in a later class. This is just an overview of the UI so you can see what's going on where. All right. What else we got here? The quest tracker. This character has no quests. This is unfortunate. She needs a quest. Dun, dun, dun. So, we need to give her a quest to look at. Altering the UI. So, by default, the quest tracker appears under the minimap. So, where it says the Scholars Hall would be right under there. Let me get the chat window back out of our way. Clicked on the wrong thing. Now, some people don't like the chat window to look like that because it really... Look how much real estate that takes up, even when it's, made... a lot of folks will have the opacity of the chat window be see-through because a lot of the stuff that they're doing doesn't really impact anything else. But let me see if I can get the other copy of the game up here because I really wanted to show the other game. Alright, game capture. This is XSplit, my streaming program, being a bit silly today, apparently. Come on, you. Come on, we have another game playing. Come on. Oh, it wants to be silly today, apparently. Come on, you. Anyway. In the meantime, there are other things on this user interface that you can see. Now, you see this picture of a horse over here in the corner. That is actually one of my quick slots. Let's see. Actually, I should have a quest that I can put in here. Boom. There we go. All right. So, over here is our quest tracker. All right. Over here in the corner. And it will show you quests based on how hard they are for your character. And we'll discuss the scale at a later time. It will also show you a couple of things. Firstly, it'll have a little lock if you specifically select it to be on the quest tracker. Now, the quest tracker can only show you 5 things at once. Only 5. And that also includes deeds. Deeds and quests count the same. So if you want to track a specific quest, go here and do this thing and then finish, versus a deed, it's just like go to this place and do a whole bunch of things and then you're done. We'll discuss what deeds are versus quests later. You can also click on this little ring in the corner, and that will bring up the quest log, and so you can see more information about that specific quest. All right, and if you see this little coin symbol here, this is called a mithril coin. If you kind of squint at it, it is actually a picture of the Hall and Gate. A mithril coin is a currency that you can buy in-game in the LotRO store. Again, later content. But if you see this mithril coin thing and you have mithril coin for it, it can actually let you complete that quest without having to actually do it. But that's only if you're feeling that you really don't want to travel to that destination or whatever. Some people use mithril coin to complete quests frequently. Some people refuse to do so. And then there are some quests that won't let you do it. You see there's no mithril coin for these 2 quests right here. So that's your quest tracker. The final thing that you can do with the quest tracker is you can click on one of the, like you right click on this window and you can't really see, it says show in quest log, which is the first thing we did. You can unlock it, which means you can then remove it from your list. So let's unlock this one. So now it falls to the bottom because the locked ones appear on the top. The unlocked ones are at the bottom. The difference between locked and unlocked is if you pick up a new quest, it can displace an unlocked quest if you have a slot to put it in. If you have one of the 5 slots open, or you have one of the 5 slots unlocked, for example, you can actually, it'll bounce out. Like if you pick up a quest, it'll bounce out something that's unlocked. But anything that's locked will stay here no matter what until you complete the quest or unlock it or remove it. You can also do something called look for fellowship. Look for people who are also doing the same quest. Shush. And this brings up a window called the fellowing window, and none of these people are doing what we're looking for. So what it can do is you can then look to see who is looking for somebody, and nobody's doing the same quest. So that's fine. All right. You can also remove one or remove all, which would, remove either just one quest or remove all of the quests from the tracker. You can also track just your nearby quests. Like, if you want to focus on, I want to do the quest right here in Bree, because that's where we are, then if you track nearby quests, it will remove anything that's too far away. Like, a quest in the Shire wouldn't appear in that case. Finally, this is the cool part. Set as quest guide focus. Silly cat. And what that will do is apparently it's not working right now. Well, that's rude of it. I think it's probably because I'm inside, so we're going to go outside. Excuse me, Kiriana. We'll be back. Boop. But it can tell you where to go for... Maybe I should do this one. Set this one as a quest guide. There. No, it still isn't working. So let's go outside to a regular map, because being indoors kind of messes this up a little bit. All right, here we go. So I set the Flower Dumpling Prologue quest as my focus. So you see this arrow right here. It tells you the name of the quest. Also tells you how far away it is. In game space. Now, this is one of the things about LotRO is it's not a one-to-one relation to how far point A from point B is, and the text is not how far it's going to be in the game, because holy goodness. So, in game space terms of how far away Flower Dumpling's stand is, Flower Dumpling, Will Whitfoot, is in Mickle Delving. That's definitely not 3,800 meters away in terms of the story, but in how far away the Shire is, that is in the game. So that's kind of cool. Eleanor says, you don't think you've seen a game with as many emotes as LotRO has? Yeah, I think that's a fairly accurate assessment. Even more so is titles, and we'll get into those here in a little bit. Okay, so let me make sure we've... let's see. The next thing on our agenda is altering the user interface. There's so much you can do to alter your user interface. As you saw, we clicked and dragged on the general tab, and it brings this entire window around. There's a little thing in the corner. This is similar to many other applications and games where you can, click and drag this around and make this window do all kinds of weird stuff. Okay. One thing I missed about the chat window, and I'm kicking myself for missing this, is down here where it says say, right click on that, or no, click on the little chat window, and it's going to give you a few options. And that's where you can tell it this is your output. This is going to tell you what you're going to actually, who's going to hear what you're about to say. So, for example, you can just say something where anybody can see it. If you're in a group, like you've invited or have been invited to a small group of people, up to 6 people, it's called a fellowship. In other games, it's called a party. We call it a fellowship because, hello. Or you can send a message specifically to your kinship. And if you click on one of those options, it will change the color and the word down here in that window. So fellowship by default is green. Kinship by default is the cyan color. And you can just type a message. And it will say to kinship, hey there, kinnies. The thing is, there's nobody logged into my kinship right now, so nobody's going to see that. I'm not currently in a fellowship. So I can't respond to them. And also, there is a list of emotes. Let's bring that list up here so you can see it better. You can agree with somebody. You can go, ahem. Just like, you know, Professor Umbridge. Ahem, hem, hem. You can angry. You can assist somebody. That's the assist emote. So these are some of the emotes that you can use without having to know what the actual word is. But if you look, one of the cool things you can do is most commands that you can type in here. Let's put this back on say. You do a slash, which is the same key as the question mark. And then you can do your command, like lol. Oh. There we go. And why didn't you hear her laugh this time? Because I was outside. Let me go back into the game that has sound attached to it. I'm going to jump. Whee! Ow. So Kiriana heard Pinky Floyd break her leg. It's fine. And I've injured myself in fall, and it didn't show up there. So let's actually... We're going to invite Kiriana to Fellowship real quick so we can see what the Fellowship looks like. Boop. Let me switch to the other game. You hear that little chime saying, okay, you just joined a Fellowship. And if you notice... wrong window. Let me move this over here. You notice Kiriana's name changed to green. That is because she is part of my fellowship. Let me turn names on. My name is still the Scion that I always see. And Kiriana is my officer alt in Mythgard. So if you're interested in joining Mythgard, now's a good time. Thomas Delgado has a very good question. There seems to be a lot of quests destined for fellowships. Can you really advance a lot in the game without belonging to a fellowship? Yes, you can. One of the cool things the developers did do is they rewired the epic quest line, which is the main story of the game, so that it can be completed without needing a group. Now, it's a lot of fun to have people with you, in general terms, if that's a gameplay style that appeals to you, but you don't need one. And that was actually due to player requests, because originally you required a fellowship to complete the epic quest line. People are upset about that. So the developers, back when the company was still Turbine, were like, okay, we'll fix that. And they did. Okay, so now that I'm in a fellowship... I want to talk to my fellowship, right? So there's a couple of ways to do that. Is you can either go back down here to our little, let me move this up so you can see it. Go back down to our little thing here and change this so it says fellowship. Or better yet, if you're currently on say, you just type /F and hit enter. Or I'm sorry, hit the space. So /F and then a space, and it will automatically change that to fellowship. And then you can type whatever you want. Now, there's no ding or anything like that. It's like another chat window. And so Kiriana saw that, but nobody else did in-game. Now, you can also do something called raiding. And we're not going to do raiding, but we are going to convert our fellowship to a raid, because a fellowship has a limit of 6 people in it. A raid has a limit of 24. So you probably just saw Kiriana's window changed up here. This is her vitals. As you can see, she's a lot more powerful than me, but you also notice her name changed to blue. So this will tell you, that this person's in a raid with you versus a simple fellowship. Now, you still have a fellowship available. Now, if you want to speak to just your raid, you do /RA, hit space, and it changes this output thingy down here to raid. And then you can type, hi there, and it goes to your raid. And only the up to 24 players in the raid will see that. Nobody else will. But you can still talk to your fellowship with a /F. So you can still talk to your local 6 people, and then your whole 24 if you need to. So it's really cool if you want to organize, like, this fellowship is just this particular group and they're focusing on this objective, therefore you want them to focus on this one thing. You can also do kinship is /K. Again, this is the same key as the question mark, so /. Backslash is the other one, which is the one leaning backwards. It's above the enter key. So thankfully there's nobody, at least I don't think there's anybody logged into my kinship on Landreval. Otherwise they're going to be very confused. Anyway, so that's our chat window. So I was talking about altering the user interface. Now, you notice we could do this pretty easy. So we're going to move this out of our way. So all of this other stuff here, there's a couple of different ways to alter it. Before we do that, though, Cynic had no idea I was a mod on JQ's channel. Yes, I am a moderator for the Breviks. And we're not really going to discuss their channel here because, unlike the Signum U channel, they're not family friendly. Well, they are, but not in a good way. Anyway, you can alter a lot of how this user interface looks. Like, the easiest way to do that is hold down the control key and hit the \, which is above your enter key. Boop. And it's going to pop up all of these things. And these are cool. So we're going to actually look at all of them. I'm going to move my chat window out of the way. Thomas Delgado, you don't need to go to the Scholars Room to be invited to the kinship. You can send a tell to Kiriana, and I'll put her name in chat. Well, actually, you can see her name on the screen. But if you send her /tell Kiriana and say, this is Tomas, I will then invite you to the kinship. And that'll be to the Mythgard kinship. I won't invite anybody to Radio Free Gallifrey because that's my personal kinship. In the meantime, what is all the stuff that we can mess with? Firstly, one of the cool things about any of these is if you hover over this little compass rose on each one of these little things, you can click and drag them around however you want. Look at that. And so you can make them, you can put them wherever you want to. It's really cool. And so you can see my character's vitals are up here. I can move them over here. Let's say I want to really focus on not dying and keeping myself up and running. So I put that over there. And there's all kinds of things here for these characters. I really want to see if I can get to the other game source. This is what we call fixing something when it goes wrong in production. So and this will actually give you an idea of all of the things that you can do with the game. Let's say you want to move your quest tracker. You can click and drag and move that around. You can also, and any of these you can just move them wherever you want. So click and drag is basically one of the main ways to get anything done. Let me check Kiriana's window. She does not have a tell from somebody, but that's okay. XSplit is being silly today. How very impolite of it. Anyway. So you can, again, move any of these elements around. But it also show you things that are not applicable to your character. Okay? So, for example, down here is one that's called the Gambit panel. That's only useful for you if you are a warden. Down here is something called the Attunement panel. Only useful if you're playing a Runekeeper. And these are different classes in the game that let you play certain things, certain methodologies. Oh, come on, XSplit, stop being as silly. You play on a 1280 by 800 screen, so you don't have a lot of room to move your UI around. And that is one thing that is a concern in the game. You can also decrease the size of the UI, and I can actually show you one of the ways we do that. One of the other cool things that you can do is, once you have all of this stuff set the way you want it, you can then save a snapshot of that setup so that in the future, if you create a new character and you want to set everything up exactly the same, you can then recover that information as long as you haven't reinstalled the game recently. And to do that, the command, I'm going to bring this back up here so you can see it. The command is, let me actually turn all that weird stuff off first. All right. So let's say we've got everything set the way we want. So the command is UI/UI space layout space save, and then give it a name. Like right now, I currently have it saved to 101, just the name 101. So you make up a name, and then Windows and the game will attach a .ui at the end of it. You don't need to remember the .ui. And that will save how your stuff is laid out. And then if you want to retrieve it later, same command except it's UI layout load, and then you type in the file name. You just type in 101, for example. And then it will bring everything back to my LotRO 101 setup. So like that. Boop. You notice it put my my UI window above this because I had it set so it wouldn't mess with the camera. And it's transparent again. So one of the other things is, let's move on. That's the basics of altering the user interface. I'm going to just let folks mess with that on their own time. And this will be after you've created a character and logged into the game. And of course, we're not going to get to that during this session. So the next thing is we're actually going to go through the game options. And you've seen some of that right now. Hit the escape key. It's going to bring up this window. And we're going to click on options. And this is the options for your game. Kiriana, we're going to cover your face. And the options window, again, you see this, the four-way pointer means that you can click and drag whatever. See? Really cool. And you have all of these choices down here. Whoops, I gotta tell. Give me just a moment. Let's switch to the other one. All right. Give me just a second. I am going to invite people to the kinship. There we go. Anybody else? Anybody else? Yeah, this is annoying. All right, you are most welcome. Somebody's being cuddly right now, as he likes to do. Look at him. Look at him being all cuddly. Alright. In the meantime, /help is also a big help. It is indeed. So, but first, let's go back to what we were doing. Actually, I haven't used /help in a while. Yeah, /help will actually bring you up a list. Let me make this opaque again. If you do /help in the command over here, it doesn't matter which of these you have it set to. It will show you all of the commands that are available by typing /something. And you can take a look at those later on. And some of them will access various commands in the game. Some of them will help you go back and, Hi. Somebody has claws, sorry. Also tell you things like /server time. Will tell you what time it is on the server, which in my case it's the same time as it is in real life, so. So it also will show you a list of all of the emotes that you can do. And as you can see, there is a big honkin' long list of them. So, yeah. We're not going to go into all those. But most of those are also copied in the user interface, so you don't have to remember the command for it. So, let's actually go over the options here. We're going to start with graphics, because before you can really play the game, you need to set up your graphics. Hi. First thing you'd probably want to do is detect optimal settings, because that will let the game and the computer fight amongst themselves over to which settings you should use. I have mine set to custom graphics. You can choose very low, low, medium, high, very high, and ultra high, depending on what is good for you. So we're going to actually not choose an option, because I don't want to spend the rest of my day fixing these. And you could choose your graphics hardware level. For those in the know, do not ever try to use DirectX 12, because it's not compatible. By default, everybody will be able to access DirectX 9. That is a Windows standard or a Mac standard. The game operates currently best on DX11. If you have problems where you know for sure that your system can handle the higher level of graphics that the DX10 or DX11 can handle, then what you'll want to do is to actually, there is a fix that you can do. If you have this problem, send me a DM on Discord or Twitch or whatever, and we'll take a look at it. But you can also search on the LotRO forums, and there is a DirectX runtime installer you have to download from Microsoft to get it to work right. But generally, Macs don't have this problem. Just saying. PVMP performance override. That basically is something that turns certain features down to their minimum, because in the PVMP areas, graphics can be a little bit wonky. I currently use the game in full screen window mode, and the reason for that is because I use 2 monitors. So if you use windowed mode, it does certain things. You could basically rescale the size of the window and have things behind it or whatever on the same monitor. Very helpful if you only have 1 monitor. Full screen is very nice, except it tends to basically take up your entire screen. And if you don't have anything going on, if you need something, you need to Alt-Tab to other applications. I use full screen window mode because that's best for the fact that I have 2 monitors. And because I'm in full screen windowed mode, I can't change any of these things. It's by default 920 by 1080, and that's fine. Generally, you want your aspect ratio to be automatic. Anti-aliasing should actually be up to 8 times. Don't tell Chromite. The color options, actually it's very interesting. Ever since a certain recent Windows update, I have not been able to change these. So they are set and I can't change them. The ironic thing is, since I reinstalled Windows on my gaming laptop, it will let me change them. So go figure it out. However, these are also very handy. Ambient light allows you to adjust how bright things are around you. Very helpful in Moria, because it's kind of dark in Moria. Brightness and contrast, just like changing brightness and contrast on your computer, normal. Gamma level, well, and just as you can see, each one of these has a little tooltip that will tell you. And if you notice, by the way, in the tooltip, it says adjust the contrast of the colors with a U. You will notice throughout Lord of the Rings Online that they use the Tolkien spellings for everything. Like colors is with a U, defense is spelled with a C, connection is spelled with an X, which people were like flipping out on the forums one time about that, and they're like, dude, that's how he spell. Like, why is wagon have 2 G's in it? Because it's in the books. Also, oh yeah, especially in the Old Forest, now, especially that scenario overhauled the Old Forest. Oh my god. So, this is your basic set of graphics, and you want to set it to taste. A lot of these things are going to be set to taste. You can also revert back to, you know, a default. Once you make any changes, you click accept. You can also search this window, search all of the options. This is actually really cool. Let's actually search for pets. What it will do is it will look for options that match the word pet. And as you see, these two are lit up and the other ones are gray because there aren't any UI elements that mention pets other than UI settings and social options. It's kind of cool. And then you click show all and it shows everything. So that's graphics. That's the search thing. And the search thing works on any one of these windows. So advanced graphics is where you're going to get kind of crunchy. And this is where you got to have some idea of what your machine is capable of doing. If you don't want to trust the detect optimal settings button that the game has, right? If you're not sure it's going to do the right thing, then you can tweak and adjust these things however you like. Now, I have a pretty robust gaming system, so I have everything turned up. Right? You see, all this stuff is turned up. However, let's actually go back to, we're going to actually make an adjustment. I'm going to show you what it looks like if you turn your graphics quality to, say, very low. You see how my character's really fuzzy? And you notice up here for my vitals, my icon now looks like the white tree. So let's change it to low. Oh, now it's being grumpy. I want to accept it. Change it. Let's change it to medium. You see a little bit more definition. Thing looks a little bit better. Then we're going to change it back to where I had it before, which is ultra high, because I'm amazing like that. My computer's amazing like that. And it will actually change some of the other options in these other windows. Right? So let's go take a look at some of the things you can alter. Object draw distance. And basically, the higher you set stuff up, the more memory you will need on your computer to handle it. Now, this is RAM, random access memory. So, for example, this computer is running with 32 gigabytes of RAM. Now that I'm using the 64-bit client, remember we went over the two differences of clients last time? So the 32-bit client can't really handle the high-end graphics as well as it should because it can only access up to 4 gigabytes of RAM. You would actually notice crashes, the game would crash because it's trying to do too much stuff at the same time. You can really see the difference in water. That is definitely the truth. Because water is very mobile. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. Like, these are pretty static structures, but if you go to like a pond or something and change your graphics around, that's where you're really going to see things take off. Model detail. And again, everything here has a tooltip, which is really handy. So models is like the character in a distance. What does that look like? Or a barn in the distance or something like that. Material detail. This is like the textures that you see, like these what do you call them? Sofas that you see in the chairs in the background. Okay, landscape draw distance used to be terrible, but this is really cool. It basically lets you, to quote the Who, see for miles, miles, and miles. If you have that set up very high. Frill distance. Frills are things that appear in, like, around you, like grass is frills. You can have a lot of frills. You can have a little bit of frills. As you see, frill density used to be a thing. You could turn that down. And it basically takes, there's no frills here to be seen, so it's a little bit unfortunate. So, frill density, and you max that out. Sometimes when I'm streaming concerts, too many frills will cause things to flicker, so I'll turn frills down. Because I'm focusing on the band. I don't care about the landscape quite so much around them, but I want to focus, on the actual performers. And frill distance basically means how far away are you going to see these things popping up. Distant imposters. Here's one cool thing about how the game shows you stuff in the distance. It has like kind of think of it like pixel art. You know, you see in old school video games, like, you know, the old Super Mario, where it looks like just little blocks and whatever. That's how they display distant objects. And as you approach it, it will change them to the actual proper 3D rendered one once you cross the distance of this landscape draw, right? Once you get close enough to say, okay, you're within the limit you've set for your game, I will now show you the actual 3D model. Otherwise, you're just going to see a wanted, like a paper poster of, you know, a very low resolution version of that item until you get close enough. DX11 Interactive Water. Again, that makes your water look better. Atmospheric details. This is like your rain and your snow. And you can make it look really, really terrible. You know, kind of like the scene in the Jackson movies where the hobbits first reach the Prancing Pony. Or reach Bree and it's all rainy and muddy and icky. Kind of looks like that if you max it out. Texture detail. Let's show you what texture detail at low looks. Check that out. That's at very low. And again, lower is better for your game to actually run, but higher looks better, right? So you put it on medium, it looks pretty decent, and you put it on very high, and oh my god, look at it. Right? Let me carry on it to not idle out over here. Whoop. All right. Okay, anisotropic texture filtering. This is how your game is going to filter. So, again, trilinear best performance, but anisotropic will look the best. So you have to decide which is going to be better for your system. If you don't have like 500,000 gigabytes of RAM in your machine, like you're only running on 8 gigs, bearing in mind, as we mentioned last time, is you still need enough RAM to run your computer, right? So I would say probably double up on the amount of RAM. Like, I want to run this game at max. Well, I'd probably get 16 or 32 gigabytes of RAM if you can. Some computers you can upgrade to that. All right. And if you select anisotropic, you can then change how it looks. And I use it at the max because that's what Chromite says to do. Lighting, high quality lighting. And then specular lighting, and the specular lighting is basically specular highlights to shiny surfaces, right? Basically, these are things that you could turn on, turn off. Oh, hey, look, we've got this is a visitor from Corey's Thursday class. Pretty cool. Hello there. And somebody had the door selected when they sat down. That's fun. And surface reflections, very handy. This is like reflections in mirrors. There are mirrors in the game. They're actually kind of cool. And they're water reflections, like you look into the water. Of course, as we know in the lore, the mirror was named such because Durin, the ever-living, the everlasting, Durin the First, looked into the mirror during the daytime and saw stars. And they have actually put that in game. It's really cool. You can set your landscape lighting. You have distant landscape lighting, which is in DX10 or better. You can do shadows of varying kinds. The shadows are they're not the best that ever been. Particle rendering is basically things that will, for example, these little flames, these little sparks coming off the braziers here in the corner. That's particle lighting. Right now I have precipitation effects turned off on this character because she's one that I normally use to stream concerts with, and rain and snow and whatnot at concerts is a little bit... oh, that's you? Okay. So, Esther Narsipal, that's you, Thomas? I'm sorry, Tomas? Post-processing effects. Okay, well, then you wanted a kin invite, so let me get you taken care of. Alright, let's add you to the kinship. So click on the little window that just popped up for you, and you'll be in the kinship. Yay! One of us, one of us. There you go. Alright, back to teaching. Yay! You're most welcome. I saw you at Exploring Lord of the Rings. Alrighty. Bloom, and again, every one of these, you highlight them and they will tell you what they do. And one of the things you can do is when you're messing around, just turn them on and turn them off and see what happens. It's probably best to be outside or where you're going to see something in the distance or see like water or something to see what the effects are. And bloom intensity is also a good one. Bloom is basically glowy effects, very, very bright glowy effects. It kind of blurs things around to make things all nice and shiny. Okay, here's one that's important. Avatar update visible. Now, a couple years ago, the game went through the process of updating some of the characters to make them look better, because they hadn't done so since the game launched in 2007. So far, all of the races have gotten a pass at this except Bjornings. And the new races, like High Elves didn't need one, Stout Axes didn't need one, Bjornings are the only one currently that needs one. And what this does is this is for people who may have preferred what their character looked like before and didn't like any of the modern options. And we'll get into that when we go into create character accounts or create your characters. I'll show you what that will look like. But that's definitely one you want to keep an eye on, and you could change it in a couple of places as well. You can also turn off the 3D character portraits, which if you turn that off, it turns up here, my vitals in the upper left-hand corner, turns back to the thing. All right, and if I click on another character, theirs also shows the White Tree of Gondor. This is a performance thing, and some people actually prefer it that way, quite frankly. And you can also do things about how well other characters are drawn if you're like in a big crowd, like you're at Weatherstock or something. A lower setting does help, especially if you're at Weatherstock. And the display this is based on your actual computer monitor. I myself am using a TV because TVs are cheaper than computer monitors. And they're easier to wall mount. I swear my streaming setup looks like Mission Control sometimes. So that's advanced graphics. Oh my god. Okay, and then we have audio. And audio on this one is actually currently turned down because you can hear audio from my other game, my other client running where Kiriana is logged in. Okay, so you can adjust things like how loud everything is, and then you can also adjust all of these items within the sound. Like the sound effects are things like combat sound. Well, not combat sounds because we have one for that. But sound effects like a cow mooing in the background or the sound of somebody sending you a tell, right? So if we turn sound effects to 0 and you send somebody a tell, and there's the music, which is the in-game music that's playing in the background. That is the stuff created by like Chance Thomas or Bill Champagne or one of those guys. That's the stuff that you're going to hear while the game is, like the login screen has music, for example. The ambient sound is just basically the sounds like crickets and frogs and stuff like that around you. It's basically what makes anywhere you are feel lived in, right? Like you could kind of hear in the background, it sounds like quiet voices speaking in the distance or something. Like you're in like a bar that's not playing super loud music or anything doofy like that. That's ambient sound. And you can turn that up and down. Combat sound is the actual, sword on sword, sword on shield, sword on orc. The sound, those sounds, you can turn those off. The user interface is like when you click on something or, and again, these also have tooltips, but they don't really explain what elements are included in a user interface. So anything where... let's click on something. No. I think sending tells as part of the user interface because it involves the chat window. Voiceover volume. This game doesn't have a lot of voiceovers. Mainly during, like, when you complete or start a quest, there might be a voice actor and some of them that might say, like, a couple of sentences. Or if you click on a non-player character, like somebody in the town, they might say something similar, something like you click on an elf, it'll say, like, "May go Vonin, friend," or something like that. And that's all they say. And somebody recorded those. You can turn all those off. Finally, the last one, player music volume, is actually really cool because LotRO has a music system. We're going to go into this in a little bit more detail. In fact, I have a special guest who will be on the show when we discuss music proper like. But there are musical instruments available for purchase in the game, either with silver. Depending which instruments, you can get some through bartering at festivals. And players have been extremely creative with their use. They've created bands. They have concerts like the Weatherstock thing that I mentioned. One of the more popular kinships out there is called the Lonely Mountain Band here on the Landraval server. And they host a crap ton of people on the top of Weathertop, which is, from my understanding, the worst place for them to have done it, based on all the stuff behind the scenes in the developers' eyes. Like, why did they put this there? It's so many things. Why did you do that? Because there's so many quests and whatnot up there, and it's a mess. But you can actually listen to concerts. There was one going on right before the show outside at the Prancing Pony at Bree is a common place for concerts because it's easy to get to from just about anywhere. Okay. So that's the three main things. And these three items are available even if you're not logged into a character. If you are out on your connecting to a character screen, you can still access those. So as long as you're logged into the game. All right. Next up is UI settings, and this is where you can really get crazy. This is where you can adjust your toolbar as well. All right. The toolbar is this thing down at the bottom of the screen. Right over here. And you can actually tell it what items go in these little circles over here. Now, these are the default items. Like, this pulls up that window. This pulls up your crafting panel, and I don't have any craft set on this character. The social panel, and you can even see, like, there's a drop-down box of what your choices are. Let's say you don't want system to be over here. Let's say you want your bags over there, right? Because all of these and all of these are customizable. I think this one isn't. Because that one used to be a thing that they took away. So you can change any of these to be any one of these options. Like your character's biography, your extra character screen, your collections. Like, you can make yourself shortcuts based on what you want down there. I just leave it as the default. That's fine. So you can change them up however you like. All right. Floating toggle floaty names. By default, you can set so floaty names are not on. And so you don't see anybody's name. You have to, like, if you're role playing, you don't want to greet somebody by name if you don't know who they are. You can then, go up to them and say, "Hi, I'm so and so," and then, go from there. I personally prefer floaty names on, unless there's a ton of people around. Who's sneaking? Persimmon, hi. I know who you are. I don't know why you're waving to Kiriana. If you want to, Persimmon, if you want to join the kinship, send Kiriana a tell, so I can hear the ding, ding. And you can also adjust how big or how small these words are. By default, it's 1.0. This is how big it normally is. But because I stream concerts, I made a choice to make mine bigger. So by default, I have 1.7 set. So it's pretty large. But as you can see, it's a lot more readable on screen. Ah, it has a ding for persimmon, and I know who that is. Let's invite you to the kinship too. Boop. There you go. Set your character note when you have a chance, so people know who you are. All right. You can also make how opaque it is. As you can see, you can make it real faint. By default, it's going to be completely opaque. Look, it's persimmon. It's I'm outnumbered by Myth Guardians. By default, basically, if you have floaty names turned on, if you have floaty names turned off, it will automatically enable selection names. So if you click on something, it'll show you their name. But if you turn floaty names on, everybody's has a name, so it doesn't matter. Take it easy, Pastille. Hopefully you can catch the rest of it, because it will be saved. I will be uploading it to my personal YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/Druidsfire. Because I don't have permission or the mechanics set to upload it to the Signum. I honestly don't know if they're gonna upload it to the Signum one. I'll put it on mine. It's fine. In the meantime, let's move on. Selection indicator is this little big arrow. You see this big arrow above Kiriana's name? That's the selection indicator. You notice Persimmon doesn't have one. Now she does. Now she doesn't. Show selection indicator in combat only. Very handy if you want it to only be when you're fighting somebody. So Kiriana is selected, but she's not showing the arrow. I leave it on. This. I have this thing turned off by default. My character's name. A lot of people don't like to necessarily see their character because they already know who their character is or whatnot. My fellows' names. This basically means is these are things that can toggle separate from the overall setting. So let's say you have the overall turned off, but you want to see who's in your fellowship, so you know who they are versus who who isn't in your fellowship. And all player names show rank, which is if you did PvP and you got a rank like sergeant or whatever, you can display that. Show surname. This character doesn't have a surname because she's not level 15 yet. You can't buy a surname for your character until you're level 15. Item names, that's basically if you see something like a piece of wood that you could chop if you're a forester, right? That would show its name out in the wild. Player pet names, that would be for like our lore masters, pretty much. Or for people with cosmetic pets, because there are pets that don't do anything in combat, they just follow you around. I personally have that feature disabled because I find the clutter. You can also display your own pets. Player titles. Nobody has a title because, as you can see, player titles can get really long, right? And these are fairly short ones, quite honestly. I have one that's called Provider of Event Information, and the thing is like this long. It's like, really? Standing stone? Kinships, you can turn that off as well, so you don't know which kinship anybody is in. Nobody's in a kinship, oh my god! Floating damage is also good, like if you're fighting somebody, like numbers will come off of their character so you can see that they're being damaged. Experience, like if you level up or something, or somebody gets experience, like you complete a quest and all of a sudden you see this little blue text float up above you saying, plus 125 XP or something. Same with reputation. Renown and infamy is from PvP. Floating destiny. Hardly anybody uses the destiny point system, so I never have that turned on. Barter items. Like if you suddenly acquire, say, Golden Leaves of Lorien or something, like you complete a quest and the quest giver gives you these barter items that you're going to use to buy something later on. It'll show those names. My floating damage, that tells me if I'm getting hit. Other people's floating damage. Overhead quest icons. Now, a quest icon, we'll actually go into those in a little bit on another show, because they basically tell you where somebody's either waiting for you, or they have a quest for you, or you need to turn something into them. Floating text always on top is so helpful. Like, if you notice, let's actually show this off, where Arsapal over here is sitting. If I turn this thing off, floating text always on top, his nameplate is hidden by this potted bluebell that he's sitting near, because it will actually display based on where he is in relation to that item, that other thing's in front of him. Therefore, it covers up his nameplate. But if we say floating text always on top, look, we can see his entire name. Overhead non-quest icons. These are for things like your vendors, your trainers, folks like that, like your vault keepers, like you want to know where the bankers are. Selection bar vital display will show you a little thing above your character of the person that is selected. So this tells me how much morale, how healthy Kiriana is. An induction bar display, that is for characters who hit a button to start an action, and that action has to take some time. And you can see that displaying. Chat bubbles is very helpful when somebody says something. So, for example, it says, "Hi there, everyone." Everybody can see what I just said. This is very handy, especially during big role-playing events where people's giving a speech in character, or they're playing music and the music has lyrics. This is how we sing in LotRO, is that they will display the lyrics as if their character were actually singing. It's really cool. You can also show floaty damage on your character portrait up here in the right-hand corner. By the way, one of the cool things you can do with your character portrait, not only will it show you like what class you are, it will also, if you right-click on your character portrait, it will give you some options. Like, I can, basically have everybody check and make sure they're ready to do, whatever attack we're about to do. I can disband the raid. I can toggle my UIs. So I can show various displays. I can change the loot for and we'll get into loot and raids and groups later on. Loot is good. But also, another thing you can do is you can change your character portrait. You can earn character portraits through various things in game. You can also earn them simply by being in the game. Like, if you log in during the anniversary, you get, you get one based on how long your account exists. Like, the oldest ones will be getting their 13-year anniversary portrait. In fact, Kiriana, let's click on her. She is wearing a character portrait that my account earned by playing on the legendary servers and hitting level 60, I think it was. Yeah, it's really cool. But let me go over to Kiriana real quick, and I will change her character portrait, and then it will change for everybody else. So Kiriana has like a million of these things. There, that's the 12-year portrait. And most of the yearly ones kind of look like that, where you got these gold and silver leaves and whatnot. The other ones that you can earn for, like, doing enough Yule Festival, it kind of looks a bit festive. I don't have a lot of those custom ones, though, because I haven't done a lot of the stuff required for them. If you are a paid VIP of some kind, you get this golden and blue character portrait. If you bought the Mordor, I forget exactly why this one, but there's also a 10-year Mordor one. I think when Mordor came out, that was one that you could pick up for the 10-year anniversary. Now, if you're playing PvMP as one of the bad guys, you can actually change. You actually can earn year frames based on that as well. So this is the Adventure Seeker. This one with the nice compass rose and whatnot, that was for getting level 15 on the legendary servers. But I definitely prefer the Blaze of Hope one because you know me, I'm a celestial nerd. It's blue, it's got stars, I like it, it's pretty. So that's your character portrait. So let's go back to our UI. I don't want to hide Persimmon because she's cool. So you can also enable a lot of these effects. Now, enabling these effects impacts performance. So if you notice your computer's running a bit sluggish, you can turn some of these off. You can also delay tooltips, which is how long it takes for the actual tooltip to appear. I'm currently using the default. Enable instant world tooltips. I love static place tooltips. If you notice, all my tooltips are showing, other than the ones on the menu here. Like, if I click on something, like I click on a player, you notice that tooltip shows down there, like it says Kiriana, Speaker of Words, or I'll hover over Narsapal over here. You see that shows in the same place. Remember how we said that we could change stuff around? Okay, remember this, where we could move stuff. This is my examination tooltip position right here. And the reason I do that is if you go down here and start hovering over your skills and you don't have this turned on, this is what it's going to look like. It'll hover near the actual skill or the thing. And I personally found it extremely distracting. So I enabled static ones and I set this thing right here. Normally it's like up here somewhere. And that way, if I hover over and I turn this feature on, the tooltip will always be there. I found that extremely helpful. That way, it doesn't distract me from anything else. It's always going to be down there. So that's one thing that I did for myself. You don't have to turn that on. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. Another one you might want to use is cross-compare item tooltips. Now, I'm going to show you my inventory for a second. It's full of stuff. So here's a hat. So this will show me the hat that I'm looking at, and then the hat that I currently have. And it will let you compare the two to see, okay, is one better than the other? And then you can decide which one you want to wear. And you could just, like, equip it by switching, you know, right-clicking on the item. All right. And here's some things that you can use to customize your quest tracker over here. Like, if you automatically fill the quest tracker and you run out of, you know, you don't have everything locked, and you pick up a new quest, it'll bounce out something that's not locked. You can also show a queue of your skills. The game does have tutorial hints. I don't have them turned on by default, but if you do, over here, you will see a hint telling you about something in the game. And generally, it's going to be relevant to something you just did in the game. Like, you just opened a certain window for the first time. It'll give you some more information about how that's used. If you're a long-time player, you're probably not going to see anything familiar to you. Or you basically already been there, done that. You can also reset your confirmation dialog boxes. Like, there are some things you could tell it to. Don't tell me, for example, don't notify me. Like, if I click delete this mail, I mean it. Don't ask me if I'm sure. You could tell it not to do that. You can also change what your vitals show. Like, you can show, like, both Kiriana and I have 100% of our health and morale, or have it be blank. I personally prefer your current and your max. That's how I. You can also show your connection status, and notice connection is spelled with an X, and it's this little icon right here. Move that so you can see it. Whoop. Okay. Basically, it's kind of hard to tell. Let me get this out of the way. Actually, let's move this someplace better. Come here, you. Okay. So basically, you can hover over it, put your mouse on it, your cursor on it, and it will tell you what your latency is, how much data you're losing, how much you're sending, how much you're receiving. Basically, latency is the number you want to focus on, and this will be an issue for, again, later. But lower numbers are better. Let's just put it that way. Now, being as I am only a few hundred miles from the data center, less than 1,000 miles, my latency is definitely fairly low. For folks in the EU, your latency is going to be substantially higher because your traffic has to cross the Atlantic. Or if you're in Asia, the Pacific. And then the US, you know. So your latency, this is a color-coded icon. So if my latency was really bad, the green, you can kind of see the green on the icon. It'll turn orange or red depending on how bad it is. So there's that. Enable the quest guide. That is the thing that will actually tell you, if you notice this little icon right here just went away, that will actually help you find where something is going. The web store, enable LotRO store purchase feedback. Basically, that gives you the option to, you get feedback if you're going to buy something in LotRO. Here's one. If you're going to ever stream LotRO or any video game, well, actually, this is an option in LotRO and DDO, is it enables an external store, which means when you go to open the LotRO store here in the bottom, you see the LotRO store icon there, over there. That opens the in-game shop. Now, the thing is, the LotRO store will show various things you don't want people to see, necessarily. Like, if you are going to buy something with real money, it's going to show part of your credit card information. Like, what kind of credit card, I believe the last 4 digits of the credit card. So, basically, you don't want people seeing that stuff. So, it will also show people your account name. Like, I don't mind that it shows my account name because everybody knows what it looks like. See? It just says my account name. However, you can also look at these things in the window if you don't have external turned on. So that's why you want to be very careful. In fact, Professor Corey he was streaming on the official and his VIP had lapsed, and he was logging in to fix it, and people could see what kind of credit card he had and his account name. Now, your account name, you want people not to see that sort of thing because you don't want them to have any piece of information to get into your account. Because again, we don't have 2-factor or multi-factor authentication. So the only thing you have protecting yourself is keeping your account name secret and keeping your password secret. So y'all can see my account name. That's my free-to-play account. You're not going to get anything if you hack that account. I'm just saying. Now, as a streamer, my other account is just Druidsfire. Everybody knows that. I mean, that's not a secret. But if there's something where you want that extra layer of protection, then definitely use the external store because that'll open your web browser and you can do your purchasing and doing whatever. I keep it in-game because occasionally I demonstrate what the free codes are every week. Plus the fact that everybody could guess my account name, so it wasn't that much of a damn secret. So, And this is the first time I ever actually edited a video on the official LotRO channel and deleted it. Is because I snipped out the portion where Corey was showing off his credit card stuff. User skin. This is actually one of the fun things. I currently have a custom user skin turned on. And I will show you what it does. By default, you can actually take a look at something called the dressing room. And that's not it. And you do it by clicking on an item. Actually, you can hit your control button and you left click on an item, and that'll pull up your dressing room. This is a custom dressing room where somebody didn't like the one that was in-game. And they made it so your character was bigger, and so you can see things a lot better. However, this is the same options for the dressing room that you would see. Normally, you'd see like a window that's about the size of this, about the size of your options window, and your character's in there, and all these are in there. It's very small, so people made a bigger one. So if you want to use that really cool custom dressing room, this is the file name you need to look for. There is, on the official LotRO channel, a listing. If you go into the official LotRO channel, LotRO stream, and do ! UI, there is a helpful thing on how to install these, because you have to install them separately, and we'll get to the whole notion of plugins later. But this is a special, and if you do none, you can set everything back to the default. You can actually change the appearance of what the thing looks like. And there's some that you can just install. Let me see if I can show some of these off. Durance Folk, large black. Let's choose that one. See? And these are things that players created to make the game look different. Right? I actually like that one. That one's really good. And they customize, like, what you can see. Like, this one, you can't see most of your toolbars. There's one called 50 Shades of Grey Wizard. Oh, my God. I'm afraid, but we're going to take a look at it. And we'll get into this a little bit later. The one I personally like is the Azure Glass one, because it's all blue. So these are things that players created to make the game look differently. So I'm going to set mine back to the one I'm used to. Because if you change this, it'll look like this until you log out. But I'm going to put it back to the one I'm used to. So this is back to... Hey, Findolin. How are you doing? Findoladen. Are you late because of daylight savings? Probably. Everybody is. Kiriana's idle again. Oh, no. That's on idle, Kiri. A little bit. Okay, one thing we didn't mention is the alerts. You notice I have Hobbit presents I need to open up, so we're going to do that later. Alright, we still have a lot to go through on this UI. This is basically all I had planned for today, and we're almost already past our time, but that's good. Normally there's a stream on at 7 o'clock once a month, and this is not the month that's there, so we're going to be okay. So these are some other things that you can do. These are miscellaneous items that you can adjust. You can show locked items. When you are talking to a vendor to sell things, because you're going to collect a lot of stuff that you're not going to need, you can tell them to hide items that you have locked not to sell. So, for example, I'm going to pull up my my inventory again. You notice this hat? Yeah, this is the time where my UI thing... You notice it has a little lock on it? That means that if I go to a vendor to try to sell something, if I have the show locked items turned off, then the vendor won't see it. But if I have that turned on, the vendor will see it, and then I can decide to unlock it. Findelidon. Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that. Show trainable skills only is no longer relevant. Older times in the game, you would actually have to go to a trainer to learn new skills when you leveled up. It's like, oh, hey, I'm level 12. I'm now eligible to learn this. Well, you could go to the trainer and have them show you everything that your class could ever train. But these days, you automatically get those skills, so you don't have to show it or not show it. Your things will break down, and you will want to repair them. You can show equipped items only in the repair UI. This is something that I kind of drive my friend Chromite nuts with, is unless I plan on using something soon, I just let it, you know, if it's not equipped and I'm not going to use it anytime soon, I'll let it get worn down and not usable until I stop and fix it. So you could tell to show equipped items only, because that way you're not wasting money repairing stuff that you're not actively using. Show trivial quest icons in radar. This is the radar is the mini map here in the corner. And trivial quests are quests that are so far below your level you're not going to get XP for them. And we'll mention that later. You can tell this thing to show you all of those quests. Like, if you were going to go back and clear out an area to be a completionist, then you'd want to see that, because that way if you're wandering around, you'll see that quest icon. Radar animation smoothing helps the minimap itself. Location coordinates on radar. We're in a space that doesn't have coordinates, so you don't see them. If I went outside, you'd see them. Map cursor coordinates. So that is the minimap. We're actually going to go pick a map, any old map. We're in Bree. If you notice, actually you can't see it. How are we going to do this? We are going to turn the webcam off. Watch this. Boop, boop. There we go. As you see in the corner, if I'm moving my cursor around, the coordinates are changing. And you can also show the quest guide on the map or not. Very handy. Because sometimes that quest guide is in the way. So that's a thing. And this also is very helpful, is if your quests are close by, you can hover over the quest, and the quest area, like if you see in the upper right hand corner under where it says right click on map to zoom out, you see that quest ring is pulsing. It's very handy. You can also change these colors if you wanted to. See? Pretty neat. And then you can uncheck it and it goes away. Uncheck it, goes away. Uncheck it, goes away. It's really cool. Let me put my face back on here. Put my Druidsfire up first. Whoosh. There we go. So that's something really cool. Whoops, I went out of my map because I hit the escape button. Alright, where were we? UI settings. Wow, we still have a whole bunch of other stuff to do here. UI setting, this is something, let's see, where were we? Trivial icons, cursor, enable auction post history. The game has an auction house where you can buy and sell things from other players for in-game gold only. That prevents people from throwing real money at it. Always loot all is your favorite thing. If you don't have this turned on and you kill something that has loot for you, you have to run up to it to collect that loot. So always turn on, always loot all, because that way you don't have to run up to anything to collect, well, almost anything to collect loot. There are still a few things that are going to require you to run up to it and collect. Speaking of one of the other cool things, I'm going to move this over here because I'm going to show you something really cool. Is move to use is one of my favorite things in LotRO. I highly recommend this because if you check it and you click on somebody, I want to move to her. Ay, that's no nice. Well, if, for example, there's something that you can use, like a door or a craft, like you see a piece of ore out in the wild and you're a prospector and you're going to go to mine it, you can right click on that thing and your character will move to it and try to use it. So I apparently can't use Kiriana. So that's fine. And I also catch myself sometimes when I'm playing other games that I right click on something expecting to move to it to use it and it doesn't work. I'm like, oh man. One of the cool things is if you acquire a new item, there will be a special... Here, I'll show you how this works. I'm going to open my Hobbit present. Boop. You notice in my bag, those little swirly things? That is a new item highlight, and you can turn that off if you want to. Boop. But since they're already highlighted, they don't go away. Show debuffs in a separate row. This is about your vitals up here, and that makes things so you can tell which are which. It's very handy. Attunement panel size that only applies to runekeepers. Always accept automatic quests is, yeah, you may not want to. Because there are some quests that will pop up automatically, and they'll show up under here, under your map. And they'll say, you know, additional quest is available or whatever, and you click on it and we'll show you the quest and you can accept or not. This one will automatically pick them up for you if you wanted to. But some people like to pick and choose. All right, we had mentioned, somebody mentioned earlier in chat that you can adjust the scale of your UI. And that is true. And you can adjust various features of the UI, and you can do like all or nothing. All right, my Twitch preview went away, so let me refresh Twitch real quick. Yep, we're still there. Woof. For a second there, I was a little bit concerned. So you can actually adjust any of these various options, or you can do them all at once just by doing the main UI. So it's really, really handy. All right. So that's UI settings. Combat options, these are like when you're fighting things. And there are all kinds of options here, like auto-targeting bad guys. Like, let's say you've killed a bad guy, but there's like 5 of them around you and you want to keep attacking. Instead of having to manually click on the next bad guy, the game will help you pick. And sometimes you might not want to do that if the game accidentally picks the wrong one, and all of a sudden you've got 10 guys fighting you instead of 5. Oops. And you can select and deselect these however you like. Probably you'd want to read the tooltips to see what they do. One of the more important ones I will recommend to everybody is once you get your war steed at level 75 or thereabouts, you will probably want to turn on war steed auto slowdown. Target forwarding is, well, it depends on Armorborn. It depends if you're intending to pull the other mob towards you guys and you weren't done with the first one. So, one of the things about a lot of these automatic things, like even move to use, if you get motion sick and your character is moving without you actively doing something to cause it, it may trigger motion sickness. So I get a little bit wonky on motion sickness, and we are going to discuss once we get done with the UI, one of the very least favorite commands, because we still have a lot to get through, is war steeds by default will keep riding until they run into, well, actually, they'll just keep running. So auto slowdown is a good thing. Your normal regular mounts will slow down as soon as you take your hand off the keys. If you stop hitting the W key or you stop holding down your right and left mouse keys, your regular mounts will stop. War steeds, nope. They're going to keep going until you hit the S key to stop it. Anyway. Alright, let's move on to social options. You can, if you are looking for a kinship, you can enable requests. You can enable fellowship requests. I disable sparring requests because I find sparring boring. I'm not really competitive, though the competitive folks may try to. One of the ways people will try to troll you or annoy you is to send you repeated requests to spar. You'll get this pop-up saying so-and-so wants to spar. I'm like, go away, leave me alone. So instead of just doing that, you know, telling them to go away, you could just disable sparring requests. So they can't send you the request. Secure trade items to adoption request. You can be the son or daughter or father or mother of people. Enable voluntary emotes. There are some emotes, some effects that other players can trigger around you that will cause your character to do things like fainting or being trapped in snow or something like that. Those are called involuntary emotes, or somebody's forcing you to do something. I hate them, so I turn that feature off. It's actually in my default, my UI layout file to disable that because I despise them, I personally. And unfortunately, again, trolls like to use them to try to upset events. It's called griefing. Because one of the problems is especially if you have an event with a lot of people there, you're running into the fact that there are a lot of people there, and it's going to cause the game to lag. Lag is bad. So sometimes people will try to use involuntary emotes to trigger events to crash people out of the game or to actually crash the server itself, especially in festivals. And in fact, that's why we're in a place that has serious business enabled, because the developers have basically set it so you can't use a lot of these involuntary emotes in this area, which is really cool. You can customize how your raid appears. You notice how I changed it to name, and now all of a sudden Kiriana's name in my raid is see-through, or it doesn't show raid stuff at all, but background basically gives you an idea. And you can turn these effects on based on your grouping. You can also change display my home ownership information. Basically, my personal house will be labeled with my name. Like if I go into a housing area and I go to my property, it will show my name. And I also have disabled cosmetic pets because some of them are really big. I find them fairly obnoxious, and I don't like to see, especially when I'm streaming concerts. They are clutter, they cause lag, so it helps me provide a better view of a concert. Okay, the chat window. You can send tells to an IM chat window. You notice how we have this one over here. Otherwise, they will just appear in line right here, and you don't see them over there. And it automatically creates those sessions. You can enable a profanity filter. I will tell you right now, the word snowballs will trigger it. Snowballs. I haven't the foggiest idea why. Which actually made it really funny when somebody during Yule Festival was singing a song about snowballs. You can restrict incoming tells if you are getting a lot of tells from people who are not actually listed as your friends, like generally harassers or griefers or whatnot. You can restrict tells to only people in your kinship, your fellowship, your raid, or your friends list. I was being a smart aleck, Catriona, as you well know. Yeah, don't try to get around the... Okay. We found out yesterday, our channel matriarch learned about the different kind of wild cards yesterday because of the word feedback over on the LotRO stream channel. Because if you use an asterisk as a wild card, it will take everything between the F and make it so feedback was triggering the filter. Whereas if you put a question mark in for the missing single letter you need to miss, then feedback no longer triggers it. We learned that yesterday. And, you know, I hadn't thought about that in ages, so I didn't think to tell anybody about it. You can also enable timestamps on your chat, especially if you want to log something and know when something happened, especially useful in terms of, see, you enable timestamps on chat. It doesn't go back and tell you old stuff. I mean, by default, tells will be having the timestamp, but let's go say timestamps. Actually, let me put this in my fellowship channel instead. There we go. Boop. You notice that's a lot longer. It shows you the date and time. It does not show the year. You can also, a lot of things in your chat channel, you notice the colors. And this could be helpful for those who have, you know, color blindness of some kind. Or some kind of visual impairment, that they can check things based on, you know, change things based on what is better for them. Do I work for LotRO? I do not. In fact, the only person who streams LotRO who works for Standing Stone Games is Cordovan, our community manager, who streams on the official LotRO channels Fridays at noon Eastern time. I am, however, the director for Signum U's Twitch channel, so I run this channel for Signum University and Professor Corey. However, I have also been a lifetime holder of a LotRO account, so I sadly know far too much about this game. But you can change your chat channels to be whatever colors you want, and also how big they show up. You notice the event broadcast shows up at 20 pixels while everything else is pretty much 16. Event broadcasts are system messages generated by the game. So sometimes you want to see those, especially when the shrews are loose and you need to go stomp them into Eland. So, the kitty's being grumpy. So that's the chat window. The quick slots, we had shown them before, but you didn't really get to see what they do. The quick slots are these bars down here. Actually, I'm going to leave this up so you can actually see them better. So they're the 4 bars down here, and the 1 bar I have over here. It is highly recommended, if you are a wise person and don't change your quick slots too often, that you lock your quick slot bars, because if you accidentally click and drag something, look at this skill, oh, I clicked and drag, you can like accidentally click and drag it up here and it goes to the wrong spot, or you click and drag it and it winds up there. Right? But if you lock it and you try to click and drag, see, it's not going. Right? Okay, so these other quick slots, you notice they have numbers next to them. Or a letter plus a number. So these stand for control. The C plus is control and then a number. Like if I hit control 1, my character just went into stealth mode because that's the key I have set for my my stealth, because I'm on a Hobbit burglar, and this is the secret of how I stream concerts and try to avoid being shown up on camera. And also you can see how my character is not completely invisible even to me, and is not invisible even to other people, because that is actually lore. So if I hit control 1 again, it executes the command a second time, and then suddenly I'm visible. So the first row here is control whatever, and it's control 1 through the what would be 12? It wouldn't be 12. It would be control, and then the numbers 1 through 10, and then 11 and 12 are your minus sign and your equal sign, right? The A row is your alt key. So the S row is your shift key. So if I hit S and then shift 4, my character starts dancing. Yay! Because I have a dance set there. All right, and this row here doesn't have any keys that you can adjust with it. So these are your quick slots. Now you can hide quick slots if you want to. Let's unlock them. Let's lock them. So you can always show these bars. You can also not show them. By default, when you open your inventory, it shows them all. But you can tell them to always be visible no matter what. You can also make them horizontal or dock them. Now, I have the one I use for mounts is over here on the side, and I have it undocked, and I have it set vertical. You can set them either horizontal or vertical. There are no diagonals. These are not like bishops or queens in chess. And then you can adjust them however, like if you don't dock them, they will appear all over the screen, and then you can move them wherever you like. So I know some people have all their quick slots over here. I know people who have them all the way across the top. They have them in a row at the bottom. You can do all kinds of things, but it's either horizontal or vertical. just like in Battleship. All right, input. This is how your mouse behaves, or in my case, trackball, because I use a trackball. And this will tell you how sensitive things are, and you can adjust this to whatever works for you. I will tell you that enabling X input detection is probably useless because it doesn't work. X input devices are things like controllers. Even Cordovan, who loves using controllers because he's a video game console nerd, he hasn't been able to get LotRO to work with a controller anyway, so. All right. Camera aligns to slopes is kind of handy if you're wanting to get a view based on what your character would normally see. I personally find it very distracting. And how do you move your camera? You hold down your left key, your left mouse key, and then you move your mouse or adjust your trackball, and it does that. And if you hold down your right key and do it, your character moves with you. Right? It's kind of cool. All right. Troubleshooting. We're going to skip key mapping because that's a big topic. So, troubleshooting, this will help you decide how you're going to let the engine work. Let it pick your connection speed. Nobody is going to choose anything other than automatic. Because if you see those numbers were from dial-up days. Nobody uses them. So automatic. Maximum frame rate. You can actually tell the game to limit your frame rate if you know there's going to be a performance issue of some kind. So let's go to key mapping. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. One of the cool things about many video games is you can change anything about what key does what thing. Now, let me go back to my slide for just a minute. I actually have slides for the next item in the agenda. Okay. We had a slide. Let's actually go over our slides and make sure we haven't missed anything here, because I think we have. So let's go back to our slide for just a moment. All right. So we went over our chat window. We went our default chat settings. We went over Whispers and Tells, Fellowship Rating, Kin Chat. Global channels we didn't talk about a lot. There's some global channels out there, and we should discuss those. Global channels would be things like, if you notice the list of channels where you could change the filters. We'd started to go over this, so let's go over it a little bit more. We're going to talk about user-defined channels, customizing chat windows. So we're going to kind of take a back step, because this will go into key mapping in a little bit. Sort of. So, yeah, let's get that out of the way. Boop. Let's get our chat window front and center again. I'm sorry, Nespal, I'm going to cover your character. I apologize. Let's go back to our game. Boop. All right. So, chat filters are actually channels. So, I mentioned emotes. Errors are like if the game throws an error at you, like you can't do that because something went wrong kind of deal, right? Let's get Curiana to stop being AFK. Otherwise, she'll log out. All right. Then we have event broadcast, which is a global event. This is something that comes from the game or from the developers. Generally, big letters, bright orange, as we saw. Fellowship chat is the green text that we saw where you talk to somebody in your small group. Kinship is where you're talking to just people in your kinship. Kinship is like a guild in another game. Basically, a group of people who have banded together to be an organization like Mythgard. As you can see, everybody else here, aside from my other alt character here, is in the Mythgard kinship. That is the one that Signum University has for its LotRO players. LFF is shortcut for looking for fellowship. That is where people who are looking for people to join them in game for like group quests can post a, hey, I'm doing a run on such and such a content. We need such and such kind of players. Loot fellow basically means you can see all the cool loot that people in your fellowship are getting. I find it spammy and I turn it off. Loot self shows you what you're getting. OOC stands for out of character. And that means, like, if you're in a situation where you're role-playing, that is where you can say something out of character, and it can show up in a different window, and it doesn't disrupt the actual roleplay. It doesn't harm other people's immersion. Officer is if you're an officer in a kinship. There is a separate channel for officers where you can talk amongst yourselves in case, like, you need to mention super secret stuff, or you need to talk to maybe handle a disciplinary action because somebody in your kinship's being a dork, or to organize events for your kinship or something like that. Quests, basically your stuff that's coming out of a quest, like, like where you hear a voice saying, okay, this is something happening, and then you need to go talk to this person. It will, it'll show. RP stands for roleplay, and that will be where, or people will actually, speak in character or organize role-playing events. Raid is your group of up to 24 people organized to handle the same piece of group content. Regional is an automatic channel that can appear, like when you go to Bree, there is a Breeland regional channel. You go to the Lone Lands has a regional channel. That's where you can talk to other people in that same zone. It's like, hey, I'm doing this particular content. You want to join me? And they don't want to necessarily, like, they might just be doing regular questing and they're just looking for somebody to run with or something. Say is like when you're just talking amongst yourselves in the same room kind of deal. Standard, I'm not even sure what standard does. I just leave it on because I don't see anything from it. Tell is also known as a whisper. That's where you're sending a direct private message to that other player. Trade is where people are offering to buy or sell items, maybe not through the auction house, like, hey, I got this really cool thing, but I don't need it. Anybody want it? And here's the price. Or, hey, I'm looking for something, looking for whatever item, looking to, spend whatever amount of money. Send me a whisper, send me a tell to, give me your offer or whatever. And then we have world chat. It's at the bottom of the list only because it's alphabetical. I personally turn world chat off on every MMO I play because sadly world chat is like reading Twitter, except it's everybody who's active in world chat. Sadly, world chat can get a little bit... it can be a little bit out of hand because it's pretty much unfiltered. There are some people who like to go to world chat and start fights, try to troll people, try to pretend to be Standing Stone employees. And as I mentioned in last week's class, by the way, and we're going to go back to our slide here for a minute. I'm going to show you. Watch out for trolls and scammers. Some folks will like to post links or pretend links to sites that will steal your information and or your money. So always be very careful about links in chat. And again, people do like to pretend to be Standing Stone employees, either by using a name, the real life name of a Standing Stone employee as their character name, or something related to their character name in, their forum handle. Like Cordovan is our community manager. If you see him in game and he's logged in as his admin, any Standing Stone employee logged in as themselves will have a plus sign in front of their name. Like if you see Cordovan, he's got like 5 different pronunciations, and he's logged in as his admin character, which he will probably wind up doing at some point during our upcoming anniversary event. He'll log in and everybody will know it will be him. He'll have a plus sign in front of his name, and he will then throw treats on the ground for everybody to pick up, You can also adjust your quick slots to Alt or Shift if you want to. But basically, if somebody claims to work for the company and you don't know who they are, like it's not a character name that you already know is them, then it's not them. In fact, you should probably report them for impersonation of an employee. Because sadly, people like to roll in, pretend to be employees, and spout all kinds of rude or wrong stuff to the player base, to troll, to grief, to cause dissent, and basically rude people. I personally have no time for them, and I love reporting trolls to Standing Stone. It's one of my favorite things to do. All right, let's go back to our gameplay, because we're going to show off the final thing about chat, as you can see over here. Let me get back to the game. Boop. Boop. Change filters. You see it says user chat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You can create your own channels. Now these cannot, I don't believe they can be locked with passwords. So basically you can, for example, create a channel for an event. You can create a channel for, let's say you have your kinship is allied with another kinship and you don't want to necessarily use Discord to talk amongst yourselves because it's not that big of a deal. You can create a user channel. For example, here on Landreval, there is an events channel called Ales and Tales, and you join a channel by typing /join channel and then the name of the channel. So Ales and Tales is all one word. And it will tell you which channel it is assigning to you. Like it says joined room Ales and Tales user chat 1. So if I want to talk to that channel, I do /1, hit space. It says user chat 1, and then whatever I type is going to go to the Ales and Tales channel. It tells you how many people are in the channel right now too. I'm not going to say anything to Ales and Tales because they're not expecting it. You also can't add Standing Stone employees to your friends list. That is true. You also can't randomly send tells to the GMs unless you're during a special window where they've enabled it, because you know people like to just randomly send whispers and tells to the employees. Yeah, once in a while, World Chat actually has good stuff going on. For the most part, and this is not even a LotRO thing. Like every single video game I play that's an MMO that has an open for anybody chat, it's frequently a cesspool. It's just so. If I want to get into fights with people about politics, I'll go to Facebook or Twitter. Actually, I don't talk politics on Twitter. I try not to. But yeah, people actively try to get you riled up. Like, they will say the most inciting things, not exciting, but inciting things in World Chat just to get your gears going, just to make you mad. And it's basically, you should ignore them. So there's that. All right, let's see what else I have in my magic slides, because we've gone pretty much off the rail here. There is also an option for voice chat in the game. You can turn that on in the audio settings. We didn't actually go over the audio settings because we are terrible people and I forgot about it. But that's okay. We're going to go over them in a minute. So let me show you the slide, what I got there. Wrong button. Let's hit that button. Let's see if the game... There we go. So in-game voice chat is something that's built into the game itself. Let me get this out of the way. There we go. Anyway. And you can access it through the audio menu. And you have to scroll down to get to it. So the sound features, this is the sound, this is the sound that you're hearing. And so I can play this on any of these other outputs. Ironically, I'm not sure what that one actually is, but these are my TVs. These are my two monitors. I could literally play LotRO music out on my TVs. It's really cool. My slide is showing. Oops. Thank you, Snorblum. Appreciate you. I was going to show that and went to the wrong thing. Okay, so here's our audio menu. I scrolled down. Remember, we had all of our stuff up here. All the music volume and whatnot. But you go down here and you can change what thing is playing your sound. So right now it's going through my headphones. I can tell it to play on either of my two TVs. And I'm not sure where that goes, and I don't care. That's fine. One of the things, especially if you use multiple monitors or you switch out of the game through Alt-Tab on the same monitor, is as soon as you stop, like the game isn't the focus of your computer, you're on another program or an application, the sound goes away. I personally like the sound to persist. But you can do any of these things. I never recommend disabling or muting the sound. I'm not sure what that does. EAX. Disabling game sounds, you can do that. You can disable combat music. In Gondor, I probably would because they have this high-pitched violin playing and it drives me bananas. I hope Bill Champagne didn't make that because he's my favorite. All right. You can also enable... you can also disable voiceovers here if you wanted to. Like if you click on an NPC, like a townsperson, they'll say, hey, you know, Meg of Honor or something. Or you can disable that. This is player music. This helps you work with player music. And this is voice chat. These are the commands for voice chat. You can enable it, and all of a sudden you see there's a little green icon next to my character name. And you can check your microphone with this. You can also choose an option called hands-free voice. I recommend not using hands-free voice. The alternative is something called push-to-talk. And push-to-talk is basically where you set up a keybind, and we're going to talk about keybinds in just a minute. That when you press that button, then your voice transmits. And this is useful when you've got things like an annoying cat. Like when I'm teaching, of course I'm talking all the time, but when I'm playing a game, I don't want people listening to that bozo meowing all the time. So I will set up a keybind to do hands-free voice, or I'm sorry, to use push to talk. And you can set up how powerful you sound to other people. You can also set up how not so powerful you sound. You can also pick which device is going to hear other people when they're talking to you. And for some reason, it wants to send that to my TV. I don't know why. That's okay. And this will also tell you which microphone that you're using. Like right now, mine is set to this microphone. One thing as a streamer, you might want to be careful about is sometimes these will be set to your webcam. Because webcams have microphones built into them, and they're generally terrible. But if it's the only microphone you have, you kind of use what you got. So I actually don't like to use in-game voice because while it is better than it used to be, it's also fairly terrible. One of the cool things you can do, though, is if you and somebody else in your group has voice... Let me enable voice over on Kiriana. This is going to be bad. What's actually really funny is in-game voice caused an incident during Mythmoot because we were in group with somebody and somebody was answering Corey's question because they were listening to Corey in Discord and they were answering it, and Gabe was like, how the hell is... Like, we logged out of Discord and it was like, how is this person still talking? It's like a voice coming out of the venue speakers. We're like, what the hell's going on? It was funny. So you notice, let me turn voice on with, nope, not that button. Options, audio. Let's enable voice. Boop. Okay. If you notice, Kiriana should now have the green thing. And if I'm going to talk to Kiriana, let's see if this works. I don't think it actually is set to work. Because I might not have my key set correctly. Yeah, my voice push to talk button is incorrect, so... Alright, yeah, there we go. And if you noticed... Yeah, Z is the keybind by default. As you noticed, my voice sounded very different. At least it should have done. Because it's being processed by the game. Oh my god. Is there an actual feedback loop in the game now? Because there shouldn't be. But you notice the little green thing turned to red? But one thing you can also do is you can edit how somebody sounds to you. Oh, where's that little icon? No, that's what I'm looking for. I don't remember how to do this. But you can also adjust the volume of, if somebody's coming through too powerfully, you can also adjust the volume of their sound. It's really cool. So, there's a possibility. There's somebody in one of my kinships that is, their mic is set so high, and I always have to turn them down, and it's still very loud and powerful. So, there's that. All right, so the final thing we're going to go through on the UI is key mapping. So key mapping is, this is 2 sets of buttons where you can tell it what the default key is to do certain things. Some of them, and most of these are the defaults. I recently had, I had changed a couple of them. Like I made male to be like the backspace key, but the backspace key is actually used for something else. So let's make sure I'm not missing anything from my slides. There are other means to talk amongst your friends if you're doing group content. You don't have to use the in-game voice chat. There is also a third-party voice chat. For those who are familiar with the Exploring Lord of the Rings class on Tuesday nights here, Professor Corey uses Discord as well. Where we're all logged into the same Discord channel. Everybody's muted except him, and that's by default because, again, so many people talking over each other. So, but he's speaking, and then we can all hear him, and then those of us who are admins can unmute ourselves and talk, but everybody else can. There's other programs that do the same thing, like TeamSpeak is an older one, Ventrilo and Mumble. Definitely, go to their websites if, Discord isn't for you or you don't like Discord. So there's that. Alrighty. Alright, we were talking about keybinds and key binding, but first we are going to talk about some other gameplay things, basic stuff here, that we're going to go over. So we're going to discuss how do you actually move your character. Once you've created the character you're going to play in the game, how the heck do you move? Many video games use what's called WASD, or WASD. And literally, those are the keys on the keyboard. W moves you forward. A and S, left and right. I'm sorry, A and D, left and right. And then S moves you backwards. Some games allow you to use your mouse or trackball by holding down both the left and the right buttons at the same time. You can either walk or run. One does not simply walk into Mordor. Anytime I get a character to Mordor, I dismount, put them on walk. By default, Dragon Rider says they are not left-handed. Use the arrow. You can also use the arrow keys on the keyboard to move yourself left and right. You can also buy peripherals or buy keyboards that have a left-handed interface, like I'm going to make a mess doing this, I'm sure. Watch this. See? I have a keyboard that has a left-handed, this is actually the left side, a left-handed ergonomic/gamer keypad on it, where it's actually very handy, and I hate playing on a standard keyboard anymore because of it. But you can buy those. Those are up to you if those are better for you. And I did mention something about the camera earlier. And I'm going to move this window over here because I need to see this while I'm showing you this. All right, let's go back to gameplay. So your character by default runs. Run, run, run. However, you can also walk if you press the insert key. See? Oh, look how short my character is. So this is just WASD. So D makes your camera pan that way. A makes it go that way. There are also other buttons, keys that can make your character move quickly to the left or the right. It's called strafing. Now you can strafe in both walking and in running. And it can be very handy if you're trying to avoid bad guys or you want to position yourself better. And you can change what buttons. So those are by default Q and E in LotRO. Ironically, in DDO, the other game run by Standing Stone, Strafing is A and D, and it messes with my mind. I need to adjust the key bindings for that. And there's also, you can adjust the camera around you. Like, normally, again, I had mentioned earlier, you can left click and drag. Let me move this out of the way here. Get that out of my way here. You can left click and drag your camera. You know, you can circle it all around you. Now, if you notice, the camera is hitching on items around it. You notice it gets blocked by this sofa, so it changes what things kind of look like. It's really cool. And sometimes you can get some really cool screenshots by doing that. There's other ways that you can adjust the camera without using your mouse. You can also zoom in by mouse scrolling up to that point, or you can zoom out by, you know, scrolling down with your mouse, and there's only so far you can go. And sometimes, again, your camera will get hung up on things and change. Sometimes people don't want to mess with that too much because it can cause nausea. All right. Now, one of the other things you can do is there's one special keybind, and I'm going to show you how this works. Is I'm going to hit the X key. The X key is the doom of our existence, and this is what we'll do. You notice how it slowly panned the camera back to my character, my other character, even though I'm not facing her, but my camera looks at her. So if, let's say I move my camera again, with, you know, just moving my camera like this, and I let go of the button. People have found that very disconcerting, so hit the X key to turn that feature off. That is camera targeting. I'm not sure what it's called, actually. We'll find out in a minute. It is the only time I've ever found it to be extremely useful is in mounted combat, which you won't see until you get like halfway through the game. So, X key bad. And finally, you might want to take a screenshot, but you don't want all this other junk on the screen. You don't want the quest tracker, you don't want the minimap, you don't want these. So, you can hit the F12 key. Boop. All the UI goes away. Names will still be there unless you hit the N key to turn them off. So, look, I've got a class. Look at that, it's my class. And then you can hit the print screen button on your keyboard. Again, by default, you can change it. I believe F11 is also a keybind for that, but I just use the print screen button. And then if you want to turn your UI back on, it'll also show you that it saved your screenshot to disk. DTO doesn't tell you that it saves screenshots. It's annoying that way. By default, your screenshots will show up in your documents folder on your primary hard drive, even if your game is installed on a secondary hard drive. So make sure you have space available. All right, so finally, let's see here. Yep, the final lesson of the day, because we are actually a half hour over my usual time, and it's okay. This was a big chunk of data, and we're good. Is we want to show you key binding, and we showed you a little bit. You can see right here all of the things that you can change. And you see how small that little thing is right here? There's a lot of things, and they're all over the place. What you can do, and this also is where you can change your key bindings for your quick slots down here as well. Like the Control 1, Alt 1, Shift 1, you can change them to be other things. The binding can be changed, however, if you want to disable a command entirely, like you can then go in here and click that red bye-bye sign, and it clears all the bindings. And then you can choose what you want to do. So like move camera is currently set to button 1 plus button 0. You can also, by the way, adjust your camera with the number pad. Nope, that's not it. Whoa, hello. Okay, there's some commands that are set to the number pad, so it's annoying. Anyway. Oh, I hit the X key. Stop that. See, speaking about people getting sick, let's turn on floaty names, because I like floaty names. So there are certain things that you can set. Numlock will make you start running until you tell yourself not to run. Numlock is also very good. Actually, let's turn on Numlock. Right. Numlock, unfortunately, will stop you from doing things like using the insert key, but it will. So if you have the Numlock already on, you can then manipulate your camera with your number pad if you have one on your computer. See, like the insert button with the number 4 is spinning my camera around, making us all dizzy and sick. And then 8 kind of zooms up. 2 kind of, angles it down. And then you zoom in and zoom out with page up and page, well, no, it zooms in. See, I don't use the actual the number keys to do that. So if you have your Numlock on, you can't use walk mode. Like you can't use the insert key to turn on. So I always wind up doing that and then hitting insert to make my character. See, now my character's running again. Alright, you can adjust your quick slots, including the ones here at the bottom. By the way, you do have multiple slots for this very first quick slot at the bottom. You see this little thing right here with a sword on it? This is your combat quick slot. You can go up here, and this is a second quick slot. If you have a war steed, there is also a third quick slot that will appear. It looks a bit Rohirric. It's got wooden and stuff on the paneling. Looks really cool. And that will be war steed specific commands that you can plunk in there and adjust. So these are for your quick slots, and then you can go down. Okay, come on, game. All right. You can adjust how to select things. Like selecting, and this is why backspace is a thing. Selecting the nearest item is backspace. So right now the nearest thing for me to select is the door. So I hit backspace. It's going to, well, now it's not going to do that. Nice. You can tab to select the next foe. Like if you're cycling between how many bad guys you're fighting. You can also select people in your group. You can also assist people in your group. Let's say one of your people are fighting. You want to go help that person and attack their enemy. Then you can set up a command. You can set one of these up to assist them. And therefore, when you hit that keybind, in this case, Shift F2, I will then assist fellow number 2. I'll help them attack whatever. So it's really cool. Select nearest player, Control tab. That's going to be Narspal. Select next player is Shift F9. Still Narspal for some reason. Oh, F9, duh. There we go. And so you can cycle between them by hitting the button again and again. And so you really do want to go through the key binding and adjust things based on what you feel is appropriate. Because by default, a lot of these things are set to what the developers thought was cool. Like crafting is T, I guess, for trade skill. Even though they're not called trade skills in this game, that's an EverQuest thing. Map is obviously M. Hello, map. Character journal is C. We're going to go over that in a later class. There's a whole bunch of items and things that you can select based on what you want them to be. Like the quest panel, if you want to see a log of your quest, it's called the quest log, so L for quest log. There's your quest log. If you want to look at your deeds, that's Shift L, because they're not quests per se. They're just things that happen while you're beating on things, and that's the deed log. But you can adjust these to be whatever you like. I would definitely recommend, as a way to learn where things are, is to go through the key bindings and see, okay, Shift L, toggle deed. What's the deed log? What does that look like? Well, then you hit Shift L and find out. And by adjusting some of these keybinds, you make the game easier for you to play and more comfortable for you to play. And then sometimes what winds up happening is that you come across like, oh man, this other game doesn't have my stuff set up the same way that this is. It's so cool. So you can see some of these don't have keybinds at all, right? And then, again, if something makes better sense to you, that, okay, why am I hitting F11 to do a screenshot when there's a button on my keyboard that says print screen, which in this case is also known as the system request button. Now, let's say you wanted to change a keybind. How do you do that, right? So follow selection doesn't have a keybind. Let's set a keybind for it. We're going to click on the button, and then it will tell you the next key or button you press that you select is going to be that. So if you do want to do like Control A, you hold down both buttons, Control A, and then it will map that Control A to that command. Now the thing is, there's so many commands and so many buttons, you're probably going to come across something that says, oh my god, do you realize this button already has a function? Do you want to override it? And then you choose yes or no, right? So I'm not changing any of these because I don't want to mess anything up. And then generally, when you go in and set all these up the way you want it, that's when I would tell you to go in and save a layout, because it will save a lot of these settings for you. So you don't have to do them every single freaking time. True story. So, and there's a lot of the functions that you saw in a lot of these other settings of the UI settings, like loot all. You can turn that on. You can actually change what key. There's actually a keybind, a shortcut, a keyboard shortcut for that particular thing. I like to do it all in the UI myself because I'm not a keyboard person like that. But you can do it. And oh, hey, look, the music stuff. By default, I don't have any of these set up. But there's some defaults for the music system that players use to make their cool stuff. And there's fellowship maneuvers, which are a feature of the game, which we're not going to cover too much because they're not very useful beyond the Moria content, if that. And you can also look at your cosmetics, how your see, this is the keybinds for how your camera works. Like panning in, panning out, pitching it up, pitching it down, rotating left and right and all over the place. And here, toggle target lock-on mode. You know what a lot of people do who hate that target lock-on mode is they remove this key. But because it is useful in Out of Combat, they keep it on. So, so that is our options in our UI. Now you can get to the main menu of the game and you notice all these things we didn't go over. We're going to go over all of this stuff in future classes because we're going to go over inventory, crafting, your character stuff. We're going to go over all of this fun stuff in future classes. I just wanted to go over the actual UI and the basics for that. So let's kick us back to our slides because I have one last slide for you, and this is the one you'll see every show. And that is going to be our helpful links. All right. So Dragonrite, if you hate the X key, you can disable it. Just hit the little red thing and make sure it's not there. So again, official SSG owned or run sites, lotro.com/forums/forumphp. That is where you can go to the forums and interact with your fellow players. Please don't be trolls. And also get answers to questions from the development team. Anybody who posts with a blue name is a current employee of Standing Stone Games. Like you'll see, there is something on there called a dev tracker, a button you click called the dev tracker. That is notes strictly from the developers. You can go, if you have a problem with your account or with gameplay or you find a bug, go to help.standingstonegames.com and fill out you can search their help files there. And if they're not all that helpful sometimes, you can then put in a bug report or a ticket for customer service. If you want to ask a question to Cordovan directly on his Twitch show, twitch.tv/LotRO stream. I am a member of the LotRO stream team. I stream on Fridays, sometime after 3, or not, depending on when Corey is around. I used to co-host Cordovan Show, so Professor Corey is also a member of the LotRO stream team. Everybody except Cordovan are players, just like you. We either paid to play the game or we're free to play. If you want lessons on how to do free to play and not spend real money on the game, I highly recommend a streamer called Big Ed Mustafa. He streams Friday nights at 10 o'clock, but you can also watch his VODs to see, his videos on demand to see what his tricks of the trade are. There are also really cool fan-run sites you might want to visit. FibroJedi.me.uk, all that other fun stuff. He is doing a series of beginner's guides. He's also the premier festival guide writer of our LotRO community, and he's going to be super busy next week because the spring festival is coming. Woohoo! If you want more generic information that may or may not be accurate, it is more accurate than not. Let's be fair. Generally, if things change in-game, the wiki is a little bit slow on the uptake sometimes, but it happens. So, lotro-wiki.com. You can also contribute to it if you feel. It's like any old wiki. It's like Wikipedia. It is a fan-run thing. These are not sanctioned by LotRO or Standing Stone Games, but, they are aware of them. And since they don't cause problems for the game, they let them be. Because there's no reason to mess with them. So if you have any questions about a lot of the game terms I've been throwing out here, then that last wiki entry will be very useful for you. And that brings us to the end of our class today. I know it's a lot of information being thrown at you. If this is stuff that's not familiar to you, I do recommend watching the on-demand video later on if you want to go back and listen to it again. And if you have any feedback or anything, it's like, well, I didn't understand that. Then, let us know, and I will try to do better for next time. In next session, let's get you a sneak preview of next week's class. You're going on an adventure! Okay, we're going to talk about primary gameplay. That'd be cool. Again, we're not going to be logging into the game a lot. I have to go look at my notes and see exactly what we're doing. But it's going to be a lot of explanation. Again, this class is mainly geared toward academics and whatnot. Thanks, Nath. I actually got to hang out with Nath in real life at Standing Stone Game last Monday. It was so cool! Anyway, Nath is awesome people. And Nath's site will be linked here in a future class because Nath is one of our premier cosmetics bloggers out there. Yeah, I will rub it in Starblom because it's awesome. So if you have any questions, drop them in chat right now. Most of the folks I'm seeing here are veterans of the game and probably know more about it than I do, which is fine. You can also, if you don't feel like throwing it out in Twitch chat, you can hit me up in DMs on either Twitch or better yet on Discord. Discord seems to be more reliable on that than Twitch. And then I will try to answer to the best of my ability. There's still a lot you don't know. See, the first rule of wisdom is, the first rule of wisdom is acknowledging that you don't know anything. So, you go from there. So hopefully for the next time I have gameplay, I won't have the wrong session showing here. But it's okay, because we will actually use Pinky Floyd as my free-to-play account later on, because we'll need to demonstrate certain things in like the LotRO store segment of our party, because Kiriana is on my lifetime account, so I don't get to see all the annoying little turbine, or I'm sorry, the LotRO point icon. So thank you all for being here. I definitely appreciate you being here, and I will be back next week, 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. GMT -4 right now, so I hope to see you here, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you all, and as I like to always say, if you can't be good at it. Peace.